Hey, welcome back everyone to Beat the Game. My name's Steve, and today we're going to do the second part of our Quicksilver breakdown, and let's see how we can play Quicksilver efficiently with the protection aspect. Guys, like these videos, please share, like, and subscribe, and let's go on to the main focus. Right now, Quicksilver protection with his defensive one, defensive one, and the attack of one, thwart of one. We're like, does this really make sense to have Quicksilver in protection? Now, again, there's four main strategies for protection. And again, if you don't know about these strategies, please go and verify or go check out my video where I did protection, breaking down the aspects and kind of like a line of thought when you are deck building. What is your role? What do you want to do with protection when you're building? And that's a very good and insightful strategic video that you should definitely check out because I'll be referencing that a lot here. So I think the first one we're going to talk about is support. Is Quicksilver somebody that is going to excel in support? Yes. Why? Because you want to remove a lot of cards. So the support build, you want to play a lot of permanence on other people to help them stay alive and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be pretty powerful here. Control, that is another one that I really like. That's the second aspect. Control, I think Quicksilver with control, it's going to be pretty okay. You're probably going to want to mix a couple of these strategies together for Quicksilver, just because of his game mechanics, how they work. The other strategy, which is team defense, where you want to be defending all the time. I think team defense is going to be where Quicksilver is actually going to be shining here in the strategies, and we'll talk about how he can do that for everyone. And then the last one is passive aggressive. Now, passive aggressive is going to be a thing, but I don't think it's going to be his best thing. But in the end, who knows? Like we'll explore that together, and we'll see what works and what doesn't. All right, so let's look at Quicksilver in what I believe is going to be the best protection cards that are really going to work with him versus cards that are going to be a little bit less effective. All right, so there is a lot of events here. All right, so let's talk about, first of all, Get Behind Me. All right, so if we look at Get Behind Me, it's a good card. If you're playing control, Get Behind Me is going to be really efficient. When a treachery card is revealed, you're going to want to have the villain attack you. What's good about that is you can defend once or twice with Quicksilver. So I think Get Behind Me is definitely an auto include if you're going to be trying to play the control aspect. Again, he gets somebody gets Shadow of the Past. You're like, all right, just attack me instead. We don't want to deal with Shadow of the Past. Let's just villain attack me. There you go. Now, if you're playing protection, you will have a lot of things that will mitigate damage. So getting attacked is not a big deal. So Get Behind Me, definitely you want to include at least 2 copies in your deck until you actually get one of the allies that's really powerful with control. So Get Behind Me for definitely a card that you want to include depending on the strategy you want to use. This is from his signature card pool, which is Sidestep. Now, I love this card. So this means it's a defensive card. It says when you would take any amount of damage, you prevent 3 of that damage. So that is a 1-cost card. And it says if you pay with a lightning resource, you can deal a damage to an enemy. So what I like about this card is, sometimes you've already defended with Quicksilver and he's readied up. And if you defend again, then you won't be able to get back up on your next turn. So having a card like Sidestep, it prevents 3 damage. So, to be honest, most of the attacks when the villains are between 3 and 5, if you're really unlucky, it's going to go up to 6 or 7. But most of the villains, a 3 damage prevention that you don't need to defend is going to make a lot of sense here for Quicksilver. So that is definitely a card that you're definitely going to be want to use, especially if you want to do the team defense thing. So you want to defend for other people. You've used it once. for you, and then you can use it again, defend for somebody else, and then use that, and then prevent 3, and if you use the lightning resource, deal 3 damage. I think this is going to be extremely efficient for that type of build where team protection comes in order. All right, now the next card we're going to look at that is very good for the protection builds is going to be the Desperate Defense. Now, what's super good about Desperate Defense is once you're set up with his defensive upgrade and the armored vest with a defense of 3, you can actually use this. So you can defend for yourself, and then you can play Desperate Defense and then defend for somebody else, take a perfect defense, and then ready back up, and then you're back up again. So this Desperate Defense is a great card to play if you're going to be doing the team protection. So I'm going to be defending every turn for everyone. I think everyone soaking less attacks because you're defending for everyone is really smart, and I think it's going to be really efficient. Definitely run 1, 2, or 3 of these if that is the synergy that you're looking to do for your protection build. All right, one of the great cards, I love it, and this is again with once you have the setup done for it, is going to be Never Back Down. So that, again, another 1-cost event, very cheap protection cards here in the events. You get another +2 defense, so that becomes, again, once you're fully set up with Quicksilver, that is 5 defense. And if you take no damage, stun the enemy, stun the attacking enemy. That for me is just money. So normally a 5 defense, you're always very good, and you're always very close to that. So if you can combo this with any of these cards, and this makes, you can defend, ready, prevent, and stun the enemy. I think these card combinations for protection, for control, because stunning the villain is a type of control, because if he's not activating, you're controlling the villain's actions. So for me, that is a great way. That card, Never Back Down, definitely run 3 of them in your deck. The other card that I think is very cool, if you are going to go for the passive aggressive, the Preemptive Strikes. Now, what's cool about this is you can actually defend for other people. You can stun with the Preemptive Strike and these combos with these cards, which means you're sure to never take more than what the villain's base stat is amazing. Again, this is a hero interrupt, so you actually wait to see the boost card for this to happen. So this, again, is a super cool combination. Definitely, if you want to play a little bit of passive aggressive in your deck, remember, and what's good about this is this bypasses guards. All right, so there's some cards and I'll talk to them about that, like the Counter Punch doesn't work if there's a guard minion in front of you, but this, since it's a defensive card, it does work against the villain even though there's a guard. So for me, Preemptive Strike is a definite auto include into the Quicksilver protection build. And then the last one that I love for the events is Muster Courage. So again, you can just not defend, give yourself, if you're playing on standard, you give for 3, you give one ally a tough status card. If you're playing on expert, on stage 2, you give 2 allies or 2 characters a tough status card, and on stage 3 is 3 characters for 3. For me, it's very good card because it is, again, a form of control. The villain can't damage you. You're controlling the scenario in a way that, all right, cool, I'm safe. So that is a form of control that you want, and after that, if you have the Muster Courage, and then, the villain reveals a really bad treachery, then you just say, you know what, whatever, attack me instead. I think this is very cool combination of these 2 cards that work really well together. So this is kind of like my top cards for protection. If you're going to be playing Quicksilver with protection, so the Get Behind Me's, the Sidesteps, Desperate Defense, Never Back Down, Preemptive Strike, and Muster Courage, these are all must-ofs in your protection build. All right, depending what focus you are, you're probably gonna be looking at changing the quantities of these cards, like 1 of or 2 of or even 3 ofs. But again, I'm not here to teach. I'm not here to deck build for you. I'm here to give you inspiration on what works well and what is going to really be effective. Again, having a strategy going into the game and on what is your role and what you're going to do is going to take you a long way either in solo or in multiplayer, is going to be super effective. Cards that I think are more situational for me are going to be, again, depending on your role, depending on the role you want to play, there's two cards that I think are more situational. Momentum Shift, if you want to do the passive-aggressive game. Again, because you are Quicksilver, you don't want to put too many events here. You want to rely on your basic actions to do the things. So this is why it's a definite maybe. If let's say it's a minion heavy scenario, I think it's very situational for me. I like the card because you do have to heal 2 damage in order to deal the 2 damage. So if you're only sitting at 1 damage, you cannot play this card. So that's why I'm like, it's very situational. The same with a Second Wind. As much as I like the card and what it can bring to the table, unless you're going in on I'm just going to use my cards to heal everyone else and keep everyone else, and that is 100% support strategy, then this is not a card that I would be playing. Because Second Wind, you can do it in Alter Ego, but Quicksilver to shine really wants to be in hero form, so that's why Second Wind for me doesn't cut it. Now there's a few more events that I like, but I don't think are making the cut for me. Expert Defense. That +3 defense, yeah, it's cool, but unless I'm playing a character that is going to swing all the time for like 8 or 9, I'm talking, let's even like Risky Business is probably a card. I would play this maybe in Risky Business, and maybe against Rhino that has a pretty powerful attack. Aside from that, I don't think, maybe Red Skull. I'm just trying to think the scenarios where the villain's attack is so powerful that you're like, yeah, I think I need that +3 defense. So maybe Wrecking Crew. Yeah, Wrecking Crew has a lot. But I think even Expert Defense, there's other cards that are permanent base that can do the kind of the same effect that you want from that. So for me, Expert Defense doesn't make the cut. Counterpunch. Again, until you get that +1 upgrade, you have a 1 attack. So I think Counterpunch, unless you have, I rarely play Counterpunch unless I have an attack of 3. Seriously, I like it, but it's just, even if I'm playing passive aggressive, for me the Counterpunch, I don't know. I think I prefer something a little bit harder. But please, if you want to try it out, because again, it still works. It's not a bad card. It's a 0 cost event, and if you want to build your deck with so much like damage prevention and 0 cost turn, and all you want to do is play during the villain's phase, then definitely Counterpunch is something that you'll probably want to think of if you like that passive aggressive strategy. I think Quicksilver is a little shy for the passive aggressive, but you know what, it can still work. Perseverance, even though I love this card and I do want to flip a lot with the Pietro, and to go back down to Pietro and draw more cards and filter through my deck, I think I want to stay in hero form when I'm playing protection most of the game, just because for all the controlling aspect. But depending on your strategy, Perseverance might be a card that you would want to add to your deck if you are going to be flipping every turn. But again, for me, if I'm not going to be running 3 of these, just because I am flipping often, like a character like Ms. Marvel or something like that, I don't think that's a card that's since it's going to be more occasional, I'm going to be flipping, I don't think it's going to make the cut in my deck builds. And then the last card that I love it. It has my favorite character on it, but Tackle. Even though I know with my friction resistance, I will always have that physical resource to pay for that investment. I think I'd rather play it more defensive, but again, if you're playing passive aggressive, this is a card that you'll probably want to include into your deck. For me, the cost of 3 to stun and do the 3 damage, I'm like, with Quicksilver, I think I'd rather do other things, but it's not a bad card. I'm just trying to limit the number of attack or the number of event cards in my deck. So I think there's other ways to deal damage right now aside from that. So those are the honorable mentions and the ones that I don't think I'll be running in my protection builds. Again, that could always change, but depending on what comes out. But I think for now, those are it. Now, there's two very common, support cards. Let's look at the Night Nurse. Obviously, she's always an auto include, especially with Quicksilver, because if you do get stunned, you definitely want to get rid of that stun effect and for free and heal for one. So for me, Night Nurse, definitely an auto include, super easy. It's not even debatable. It's a question of always and forever Night Nurse. And then there's the med teams. Again, you'll want to start trimming down your deck because protection is going to cost you a lot of events. There's a lot of very good, powerful events. So any card that you can put on the table just to heal either allies or your other teammates. If you're playing solo, I think one med team would be sufficient. If you're playing multiplayer, then just put 3 in because you're always going to be using those mid teams at some point for something else. So that is it for the support cards. There's not that many support cards in protection, so that was pretty quick. And both of them are pretty much always necessary. So med teams, definitely 1 or 2 of in your builds. And then let's look at how we make Quicksilver better at protection. All right, so the first card, obviously we're going to want to run, is the Armored Vest, because that Armored Vest, that +1 defense, it matters. And then if you have the enhanced reflexes, which gives you 3 defense, that makes it super legit. And it just emphasizes that you want to use those protection events to either defend for everyone or stun the villain when you take no damage. So for me, Armored Vest, obviously a definite include in the protection build. And then since we are not going to be taking a lot of damage, Unflappable, because if we know the villain is going to attack us and deal us too much damage, Unflappable here can be used if a minion attacks you. And there's a one that, even if you don't have all the upgrades for his defense right away, there's that minion that's going to attack me. I'll take the hit from the boss, whatever. But that minion, for one, I'll defend, ready, get Unflappable trigger, draw an extra card. Man, so that for me is super good. You can actually choose when you want to do the Unflappable and against what you want to do Unflappable. So for me, Unflappable, definitely a card that you need to include in the deck build for him. And then obviously, let's make that defense count for something, so that electrostatic armor, after you defend against an attack, deal 1 damage to the attacking character. So again, if the villain is tough, you can always get rid of the tough. If you have armored guards and stuff like that, or enemies, minions that have the tough status card, just defend, ready, and electrostatic armor triggers. That's why the team defense is super good with him, with all those cards that can get him ready once he takes no damage and stuff like that. So you can just defend for everyone and have multiple triggers of this electrostatic armor, which is just magical. And then just kind of slowly grind the villain away during the defense turn, and then on your turn still have room to remove threat or do some damage if there's no threat to be removed. So I think electrostatic armor is another great combo piece for Quicksilver. All right, the other one, again, if you're going to be defending for everyone, this is another permanent. I don't think you need to run like 3 of these, but definitely 1 or 2 of the Indomitable, because then if you want to get ready, oh man, can you defend for me, please? All right, cool, but I already defended twice, so I'm like, I already defended once. If I defend again, I don't get to ready. So, all right, I'll defend for you and get rid of my Indomitable. And this is good about this is, again, it's a card, 1 cost, permanent, that you stay on the table. So, like, even if you run 3, it doesn't matter because they're there. And then once you have them on the table, use them only when necessary. If you have an always be running, then save it. You don't need it. Just use your always be running and you'll still have your double activation on your turn. So try to be smart about those when you're playing it. All right, next card, man. Resource generation cards. For me, again, I'm a big fan. That 2 cost card, Nerves of Steel, you can exhaust and create a lightning resource for a defense event. When we add that with friction resistance, so basically every time you defend, or the first time you defend you have 2 resources to pay for your events. So that's 2 cards that you don't have to spend to actually play those events, because remember, when you're ready, you get to do this. So again, so these defense cards that cost 1 are now free. So you know, it's so good, because then, okay, well, I'll defend, I'll do sidestep. Oh, I use the lightning resource, I deal 1 damage, I ready up, I use my friction resistance. Or I'll use my friction resistance first, I'll do my never back down. Oh, perfect. And then I defend for 5, stun the boss, ready up. Okay, that minion wants to attack you. All right, then I'll use this and I'll do my never back down, bam. Or I'll do my sidestep, gets that ready, and then you're still ready with your other stuff. So there's so many ways to combo and trigger these cards together to get these resources, especially friction resistance, and that is going to be so good, so good. All right, and then for this, again, super good cards, passive aggressive strategy, or even, you know, like take no damage strategy, energy barriers. You want to run 3 of those for shizzle. Again, just use them when you need them, because when you want to pop off those effects with the event cards, well, this is going to make sure that you never take any damage. So definitely want to run those energy barriers, 3 up, use only when necessary. All right, so if you don't need it to trigger off an event, don't use it. Leave it there. So when you do have those events, you have the counters on those energy barriers to actually make good of those cards, to really, really synergize and really keep your health high. And again, cards that stay on the table, these have counters on it, so you really want to use them as necessary, but in case of emergencies, when to trigger something. So a lot of times we'll play protection and we'll just want to spend all our stuff. Oh, I took no damage, yay. But who cares if you take 1 point of damage? If you're not triggering a special event, then who cares? Because you can always recover. Remember, these cost you resources. If you're playing the same cards over and over, you're not moving forward, you know, you're staying still. But every time you put new stuff out, you know, you're thinning out your deck and you're making progress towards having a super efficient deck. All right, so that's that for that. And the last upgrade that we have, it is the defensive stance. Again, perfect for Pietro, because again, he only has a defensive 1 at the beginning. So, you know, taking a defensive stance, again, it's a card that wants to stay on the table until it is absolutely necessary. And then most of the times you just use that and it stays there the entire game. Well, I never used it. Well, why would I put it in my deck? Well, because it's there, it thins out your deck, and when you will need it, you'll be happy that it's there. So there it is. So that is the upgrades. Now let's look at the allies. Now for me, there's a whole bunch of allies. Obviously, if you're playing protection, there's a lot of great allies in protection. Now I think the top allies for me, and there's allies you'll probably be like, why is that not in your top allies? Well, there's reasons for. I think the main allies I'm gonna run with my protection builds are gonna be Clea, obviously, because she shuffles in, she takes in some hits for us. She can thwart for 1 and take a hit, and then she's good. You know, she's a free block, especially if there's a lot of minions on the table. So for me, Clea is almost always an auto include in protection. Brother Voodoo, now you're like, Steve, why Brother Voodoo? Well, because he can get either that maximum velocity, or he can get that double team, or he can take that always be running. So for me, Brother Voodoo makes a lot of sense here. Yeah, he costs 3, he's gonna thwart for 4 and go away. That's how I'm gonna use him all the time. He's basically a 2 thwart twice, and then he just goes away. I don't even use him as a blocker, I use him to keep threat under control. So yeah, he wants to go in. Black Widow, again, Black Widow, she's the other part of the control strategy. You get Shadow of the Past, no, get rid of it. You get something else, and there is a lot of mental resources in the protection build that, you know, you should always have it, or you can always include that Queen Carrier. That just makes sense and just makes it easy for Black Widow to never have to go away and always have the resource that you need to counter the really bad encounter cards. All right, so that is for me, because again, Black Widow counters anything that you don't like. So good. Now Nova for me is definitely an auto include, just for that passive aggressive. There's a lot of lightning resources in the protection build, so using the lightning resources to always either use defense events, or again, you can use the Queen Carrier, but the villain attacks you, lightning bolt him for 2 damage. He is a very good investment that you can attack twice with, and then just use him and keep him on the table, and just then fire lightning bolts, and then just be like, yeah, baby! All right, fire shots. And then the last ally that I think is very, very important in the protection build would be Iron Fist. So for me, Iron Fist, again, with the 2 mystic counters, that the 6 damage, stun, 8, and then take the hit, for me is just beautiful. And that is super efficient in control and in a lot of the control builds that you want to do. So Iron Fist for me is very good. Now, you're like, bro, Steve, why did you put multiple man? Why aren't you putting Warlock? As much as I like Warlock, you know, as a 3 cost, you know, 1/1 that can regenerate, for me, he's okay. He's just too vanilla for me. Like, okay, yeah, he can always thwart for 1, but then I always have to heal him. So he's got like basically a first aid included in his body, but for a pure 1 cost. So it's not bad, but unless I'm playing in teams where he can either get +1 attack, then yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So so he doesn't really make the cut. And then our friend Jamie Madrox, the only good thing about him is when you pay 4, you get 3 of them in the field, which, you know what, is not bad. But for Quicksilver, I'm like, a 4 cost is very high. I'm like, there's a lot more things that I want to do with my 4 resources. That's basically my entire hand. So yes, it does. I know I can get 3 thwart out of it for 5 resources. I'm like, yeah, it's for 5 cards. I get 3 thwart. I'm like, as much as I like it, it's just not. And 3 free blocks, you might say. So yeah, depending if you want to play that game, but then I don't get to keep my other allies that I actually want on the field because I want to keep my multiple men. And then, so for me, it's just a resource pit that I don't mind. I think I like multiple men as from right now just with Wasp, just because she can keep bringing them back and cycling them in and just always have those allies in. So Wasp protection really likes this guy, but again, I'm not sold on multiple man right now. Maybe he'll get better later. And then the last one is Luke Cage. As much as I like Luke Cage with his 5 toughness and everything, he's not, like I said, he's not horrible. He's got the toughness when he comes in, so I can kind of keep him tough. He's got like 10 damage potential and a free block. I don't mind him. There's allies that I prefer better than Luke Cage. But again, he's a good guy. He's a good ally, and that's just my opinion. And you guys are free to, you know, make your own decisions how you play. All right, so that is it for my aspect breakdown, like Quicksilver and protection. Now again, the strategies you want to be using with him, like again, you want to the things that I think are going to work really, really well is defense for all, and then a lot of support cards. You know, just put a lot of those permanent cards into your deck to don't get rid of it, because then you really want to use those always be runnings to always, you know, be able to be efficient on defense and also be efficient on offense. So again, lots of permanents, but depending on the strategy you want to use, there's some of those great events there that can actually control and really, really wreck the villain's day. So I think for me, it's a good combination, and you can kind of combine a little bit of everything. So I'm going to press pause, and I'm going to show you the Quicksilver deck that I kind of want to build against the villain, and we'll introduce as well a couple of complementary cards with the basics that are going to kind of complement what we want to do here. All right, so I'll be back in just 2 seconds. All right, guys, so this is my deck that I would build. It is a 43 card deck for protection Quicksilver, and this is what I would use. I would have Energy, Strength, Genius, and Power Protection as my resource cards. That's 4 double resources. for my event cards, I would run 3 assists to assess the situations, because I will be wanting to stay in hero form longer. So those assess the situations are just going to be there to use to round up the turns. If ever I have like an odd number or something like that, and I'm stuck with 1 card once I calculate my turn, this is just going to give me an extra card for the next turn, which is very, very good. So far I found that I'm playing these assess the situations way more than I thought I would, and they're just amazing. Seriously, they're just amazing. It feels weird to say that, but it's so good. I'll run 2 get behind me's, obviously, to cancel the really nasty treacheries that can happen. So that for me is very important for this. I'm going to be running 2 never back downs, obviously, to be able to stun the villain while not taking any damage. I think is going to be super good. And I'm going to be run 1 muster courage. So again, looking at the events, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 events, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 12 cards right now that are cycling over and over. And then as a permanent base, I'm running obviously armored vest, unflappable, electrostatic armor, and endurance. So those are the 1 cost upgrades that are going to be permanent there, that are never going away. And then we have the other cards that are never going to be going away is the defensive stance, the nerves of steel. That is going to be a resource generator that we're going to keep, and that is that for the upgrades. Then the renewable upgrades is 3 energy barriers and a defensive stance. Most of the time I definitely want to keep those in there and just use them only in case of emergency. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 upgrades. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 upgrades. So now we're at 21 cards. Yeah. And then Queen Carrier and Night Nurse. And obviously the Queen Carrier is going to be permanent, but the Night Nurse has the 3 counters, so depending on the scenario, hopefully she stays there the entire time. And then we're at 23 cards. And then as for allies, again, Mockingbird for the free stun, Black Widow for the control, Brother Voodoo to find the events we need, Iron Fist for the stun, and then Nova for the damage. So there it is. So if you are a purist and you don't like to have more than 40 cards in your deck, quick fix, super simple. Just get rid of the 3 assess the situations, and then you have yourself a 40 card deck. So guys, that is my take on Quicksilver Protection. Hopefully this helps you in your understanding of how to play Quicksilver Protection. And until next time, guys, keep on playing Marvel Champions, and I hope this helps you beat the game. I'm trying a new slogan at the end there. Let's see how it goes. All right, next time, Justice is next.